Well, I think listening is the skill that's least taught in the classroom, and David Noonan called it the Cinderella of the language
Hmm.
skills. And of course, we know it's very important for comprehensible input, but it's also a very important skill in life, whether it's your first language or your second language. We need to be able to listen well in order to receive information and also to make friends. And we do too much speaking and too little listening. As John Field said, we have one mouth but we have two ears, and I think we ought to learn to listen more. The other thing that worries teachers, I think, is using listening with technology. It's actually their number one worry about using technology to teach language. Teenagers are special people with particular needs when it comes to listening classes. The first thing is they don't like being treated like children. And so you've got to give them a certain amount of control and autonomy in the classroom. And another thing is the cool factor. Things have got to be cool, so it's no good giving them old-fashioned topics to listen to. It's got to be something interesting and interesting for them. Another thing is that the importance of the peer group. So it's good to do things in a group if you're doing a listening activity, because it's very important for them to work with their peers. And another thing is that they're very good at using technology and multimedia. So if you just walk in with an audio recording on a tape recorder, they're not going to think that's very cool. They're quite anxious at that age, so it's and led by their emotions. So it's quite good to have a nice, supportive, warm atmosphere in the classroom, something very humanistic and not too hierarchical. And perhaps the last thing I wanted to mention was they're very idealistic. So perhaps an ideal listening activity might be to get them to make a documentary film in a group, perhaps on something like a charity event, or some topic like, say, cyberbullying, and they can ask people from outside the classroom to contribute so students can get an experience of listening to different accents, and then they can show it to the class and set some listening tasks for the rest of the class. So it's not always a teacher setting the listening tasks, and I think that might work quite well. I think the three important things that a listening teacher needs to think about is, first of all, to find things that are interesting to listen to. That's number one, really. And the second thing is to let the students choose maybe what they listen to or where they listen to it. I mean, they can do listening at home on an iPod or watching a video. And also, they can make the listening text, and they could perhaps make the listening tasks as well. And the third thing, I suppose, that's important is that the teacher shouldn't just do listening, because I think you should have in mind what skills you want to practice, whether it's listening for gist or word stress or prediction. So don't just do listening, have your goals in mind. I think there's lots of things that you can do on a regular basis that just take 5 or 10 minutes of the class time. And one of them is to find some song lyrics on the internet. And you can also find a performance on YouTube, and the students can listen and read, and you can do things like gap filling or discussing vocabulary that they found difficult to listen and pick out. Another thing is telephone voting, which they can do at home, and you can choose a topic together about, what you want to vote about, maybe the best ever video game. And then in groups, they phone their group leader with their vote, and they have to speak in English. And then the next day, the group leaders say what the votes have been, and you find out what was the most popular video game. And it means they're using English at home and on the phone, which is good. And then the last thing that I've done over many years, which never failed, is something that I call out of the room. And the class choose somebody to go outside the room. While they're outside, you choose a topic which you think they would be able to talk about for 1 or 2 minutes. Each person writes down 6 words they think the person's going to say. And it can't be things like at and the, it's got to be content words like nouns and verbs and adjectives, adverbs. Person comes back, you tell them what topic they're going to talk about. I don't know, David Beckham, the Olympics, something like that, something you think that they would like to talk about. And then people tick off the words that they hear the person say. They can't encourage or hint that the person says the things. That would be cheating. First person to get the 6 words is the winner. And of course they've all been listening for detail and for individual words, key words, which is quite good.